I think to be a good modeler, you have to be a born storyteller. If you know the story you're telling, if you know how old a building is, if you know what its history is and who's lived in it and who lives in it now, then there's many, many things you can do to explain that visually.
If you think about Helm's Deep as a case in point, it's a great example of not only a beautiful piece of design by Alan Lee, but also his incredible ability to put a lineage into a series of architectural structures.
Helm's Deep was actually the first thing that I started work on, and it was obviously going to be a major part of the second film, and Pete wanted to get the design locked down so that Richard could build a miniature.
The 35th scale miniature of Helm's Deep was really one of the very first things that we ever built for Lord of the Rings. It was back in the days that Miramax were financing the film, and I'd occasionally take a video camera around and do a little presentation for Harvey and Bob Weinstein.
So here we are in Helm's Deep. This model will be used for the animatics, but it will also be used for the movie too. We'll be filming wide shots. Now, as you can see, the model's not finished. It's still got to be painted and a lot of detailing has to happen.
The miniature for Helm's Deep was one that encompassed a whole environment as opposed to just a structure. It stood 7 metres tall, it measured about 20 metres square.
We had never done rocks before on the scale that we did on the Helm's Deep miniature.
We went and bought rolls of industrial-grade tinfoil, which we'd hang in massive sheets, and then by very carefully crumpling it, we could begin to artificially build the same detail that you get in huge mountainsides and cliffs.
Back in 1998, we really strategized the battle. We'd get a little video camera, and I'd look for angles. The Uruks have reached the wall, and then we're easing back, and we're seeing Aragorn running up here, and elves along these walls firing arrows down.
I remember Peter spending weeks with all these little toy soldiers stuck down on cardboard bases and shifting them around the actual miniature of Helm's Deep.
Which was actually the reason why we built the miniature at 35th scale, because you could buy plastic toy soldiers, little knights in armour, to use for planning out the battle.
Pete figured, oh, let's just buy a few toy soldiers and we'll be able to put it down and actually get a feel for that. Of course, a few turned out to be, I think, around 40,000. And to do that, they basically bought out, I think, the world's supply of toy soldiers.
And at the time, we all thought, God, this is madness. But in actual fact, there was a method to it. And to get a battle to work, you had to see it, you know, just as a commander would look down on all his troops.
I don't even know where they are right now, but I can't wait. Maybe I can get my hands on a few of them when the show's over.
The 35th scale was going to be nothing but the long establishing shots. Well, of course, as happens in every minute in this movie, all the long shot models immediately get shot from about 3 inches away. It's just inevitable. So right away, we started in shooting right over the top of the deeping wall where every single little detail is in sharp focus. So a set that had originally been built in a fairly rough kind of way, never intending to be seen close up, had to be very carefully redetailed. Everything had to be made super sharp because we were shooting from such a close range.
I made a little metal stamp with a little handle, and if you pressed very carefully into the urethane foam, it left an impression of the brick. Now, if you pressed them at slightly different depths as you went along, you would then get the effect of very slightly deeper or raised stones.
Now, we had our small 35th scale miniature of Helm's Deep that we'd done back in 1998, but then we built this huge model, which was a quarter scale, so it was 1/4 the size of the real place. And it was like about 50 feet wide. You could actually crouch down and walk through the main gate. It's just this huge, big miniature.
And we'd have to build that on enough of a slope to give it enough height to make it work so that we could have real action taking place in front of a full Helm's Deep background. And we would also do force perspective from the quarter scale, bring the deeping wall out, so you could have action happening on the deeping wall with the Helm's Deep Hornburg Keep in the background.
At the very end of shooting on the quarter scale model, of course, the big moment arrives where we get to blow it up. So the physical effects team got in there and basically packed the wall full of charges and blew it all to pieces, and of course covered with many cameras so they could extend the action by cutting to different angles. The thing about an explosion of that kind is that it's basically a one-time shot. That set was not built to be rebuilt and blown up again. So basically you blow it once and that's what you get.